That one guy. Mimetic info hazards. Creatures or phenomenon that manifest when people learn about them. Once triggered, they seem to follow a set of actions that are always the same. Before the dawn of the internet, such things were limited to small-town fairy tales and were easy to contain by erasing the minds of those who knew the info hazard. Once the internet became mainstream thought, these things are nearly impossible to contain, because data on the internet is always backed up in multiple places. And there are always people who love watching the world burn, happily taking the information and spreading it to as many places as possible. Remember that most mimetic info hazards usually run a familiar pattern. By learning the information, it usually triggers the creature's manifestation or triggers the effect of the hazard, where after that the same thing happens every time, usually resulting in the death of the person caught in the trap, usually in ways that tend to spread the myth of the meme. Patterned info hazards is how the agency tends to classify the majority of the ones we have on file. By not following the exact pattern, it's enough to not trigger a patterned info hazard, which is why each of the files on these things are slightly wrong, so not to kill the writer of the report. Well, most of the writers. Some forget and record the data perfectly. The cleanup tends to be very messy after that. Often, the researcher that takes over the newly empty lab tends to find pieces of the former occupant even months later. It's very bad for morale, so constant reminders are told to researchers to be very careful about info hazards, even the patterned ones. The other class of mimetic info hazards, and the more dangerous one at that, are the open-ended info hazards. These are still mimetic hazards that are triggered by the person following the instructions, but the reason this category of creatures and phenomenon are dangerous is because the end result is more variable. Take the case of that one guy, for example. This creature is more dangerous not just because summoning it is easy, but also because of its ability. When a person keeps a mental image of what the creature looks like and says, "Do you know that one guy?" the next phrase follows what the one guy will do, such as, "That one guy will not hurt the author of this report." And as this report is being written, the author can see that one guy manifest in front of him, climbing out the wall as if it was a pool of water. The creature looked around the room and made eye contact with the author of this report. It made a threatening gesture and attacked the author. But at the last moment, its limbs froze before the contact was made. That is the threat of that one guy, who will go to where it originally was before it was summoned. And like that, the creature merged back into the wall and was gone. It's stupidly easy to summon the creature and even easier to get it to do something horrible. There are rules, of course. Similar to the patterned info hazards, this creature works with what it was given. So while it isn't a genie and can heal people or bring back the dead, carefully worded requests will produce seemingly beneficial results. They can do something like, "That one guy can come to where I am and place a gold coin on the desk before me, then go back to where it was before without hurting the author of this report." And just like that, the creature was back, coming out of the wall. It looked at the author of this report with a glare, but then pulled out a gold coin and placed it on the desk. The info hazard then looked at the author with loathing and then vanished again. There are loopholes, of course. It didn't hurt the summoner this time, but getting the coin tested revealed that there was a deadly contact poison on the coin. Had the author touched the coin, death would have followed shortly. That is the truth about this open-ended info hazard. It will try to warp whatever the summoner asks for to cause the most potential harm. Even asking for benign things will cause a risk of injury and death. Because that one guy, even when he can't hurt or injure anyone, at this base now or in the past or future, will try its best to hurt the invoker of its name. While there are many who learn to carefully navigate the parameters it works with, there are even more people who have fallen victim to its malicious actions, unaware that they need to always add something to keep the creature from hurting them. Another thing that this creature is restricted to do, no matter how much it wants to, that one guy can't be used to hurt others, nor can he hurt the summoner when invoked. Again, it appears and is notedly annoyed at the constant summoning without being able to do anything about it. It is almost amusing if it wasn't such a deadly threat. But particularly, the request the summoner makes will always have them be the focus of the creature. So those trying to use it as an assassin is a fool's action. The best this creature can do is kill the summoner and injure their intended target in the process. Very much of the monkey's paw variety when it comes to fulfilling requests. But if properly managed, that one guy can do things like steal researcher Seattle's lunch without being seen, causing any injuries or allowing someone to be injured in the process, and the lunch must be safe for human consumption. Seeing the bagged lunch appear, one with a post-it note bearing Seattle's name. This info hazard has proven that it has many applications, potentially one in the field, only if properly tested and used with discretion. One of the benefits of an open-ended info hazard is once you figure out their loopholes, there is a ton of things one can be discovered, especially for that one guy who will forget all the events of today and will not hurt anyone at this base. End report.